Whether you're retiring, finding a new district, or getting a new classroom, packing up your classroom can be a lot. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can make it a little bit simpler so you can enjoy whatever time left you have in that space.
You're listening to That Music Podcast with Bryson Tarbett, the curriculum designer and educational consultant behind That Music Teacher and the Elementary Music Summit. Each week, Bryson and his guests will dive into the reality of being an elementary music teacher and how music can truly be transformative in the lives of the students you serve. Show notes and resources mentioned in this episode can be found at thatmusicteacher.com.
Hello and welcome back to That Music Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about some tips and tricks to keep the chaos to a minimum, at least, when we are packing up a classroom. So maybe you're moving classrooms, maybe you're going to a new school, new district, maybe you're leaving teaching, retiring, whatever. The answer is you're regardless of whatever the categories you fall into, you're going to have to figure out where your stuff goes and what's your stuff, what's your school stuff, and all the fun stuff in between. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first tip I have for you is actually one that even if you're not leaving teaching or have any intention of leaving your classroom or whatever, start doing this now, which is whenever you bring anything into your classroom that you bought with your own personal money, make sure it has your name on it. On the other side of that, whenever anything new is added to your classroom that your district or your school has paid for, label it that way as well. So I had like a roll of stickers, like little labels essentially, that had my elementary school's name on it and my middle school's name on it. And wherever, if the district paid for anything, I would put that sticker on it because I wanted to make it abundantly clear of what was my property and what was my school's property. So that's the first thing to do, is figure out what is your property and what is your school's property. And also, obviously, depending on why you're moving, you will need to be more aware of this or not. If you are, for instance, they're tearing down your old school and you're just moving everything over to the new school, this really isn't going to matter, right? Everything's going anyway, right? So this isn't necessarily where you need to sort that. But if you're going to a new district, or you're retiring or anything like that, you're going to need to be aware of what is your property and what is your district's property, or what you're going to leave behind. Now, if you have the opportunity to take some time and process all of this, this is going to be really helpful. But I know sometimes there's different ways where, you just got a new job, you didn't know you were going to have to do it, and you have like a week to move everything. But if for whatever reason, at the end of the school year, you're going to have a new building, they're tearing down the old one, or you're retiring, that's where you go as you go through the year, get rid of, give away, donate, whatever, things that you do not see yourself kind of wanting to keep with you. So kind of rehome them, right? Now, obviously that isn't going to work for most of us. That's not going to be how most of us are moving classrooms or the reasoning behind it. But if you're in that situation, that could make it a little bit easier on yourself. So let's say that for the vast majority of us, we have a very short window of I'm leaving and I need to get my stuff out, right? So once you've identified what is yours and what is not yours, then we need to start packing up the things that are yours. Now, I highly encourage you keep the system that I'm going to kind of go through today. But the answer really is whatever system works for you, especially if you're someone that moves like homes often or has done that a lot, you probably have a system that you've kind of enjoyed, or maybe not enjoy is the wrong word, but one that you've kind of made your own that works. What I would recommend is that you use what you already have to your benefit, which is likely where most things in your classroom belong. So for instance, if I was going into my classroom and I know that I wanted to get a specific puppet or manipulative or book, there is a space in my classroom where those things lived. And that is what I recommend you do, it basically a one-to-one transfer as you're packing. So I got a bunch of these big rubber tubs, or I guess plastic, like Rubbermaid tubs, that were really big. They had lids, they all matched, they could all easily stack when they were empty. And those are what I use as my main packing foundation, I guess. So what did I do? I literally labeled them as if I was going to be looking for them later on in the future, like in my classroom. So if I knew that my one cabinet was all full of manipulatives and things like that, my box literally just says manipulatives, because I know that would be where I would look for that stuff. And that made it really easy because I just bring the box over to that cabinet and start putting things from that cabinet into that new box. Now this works even better for, there was a table, or I guess a counter, underneath my windows in my classroom, and that's where I kept a large assortment of different things. Some of them were manipulative, some of them were song, lyric cards and things like that. So I literally labeled one of my boxes under the window, because I know that in my brain, I have a higher likelihood of remembering that, oh, those used to be under my window. Then, all right, where did I end up putting this time around? So I put it in that box so that I could find it a little bit easier. Speaking of boxes, make sure you're labeling them large and ways that are easy to read and easy to see from a distance. So really big letters, under the window, or manipulatives, or picture books, or whatever in there, so that you can kind of do it at a glance as you are packing. Also, little pro tip, use it on the same side of the box. So always have it on the big side of the box, but also like the side. So like two different sides in a 90-degree angle, so that depending on which side of the box you're on, you're able to see it. And if you're moving in a place where these are basically going to go right back into school, especially if you're staying within the same district, just put your name on it. Tarbit music room, or if you're going from one room to another and you already know what that room is, Tarbit 2 room 213 or whatever. So kind of label that on that so everything gets delivered, or even if you're the one doing delivery, ends up where it belongs. You can do this like writing directly on the box. You can have it printed on a piece of paper, whatever. But I encourage you to make it so that you can visually see it very easily. So once I have all these things in the boxes, again, I have them boxed based on where they would be in my classroom. I just started making a pile, right? Taking these boxes, what I like about them is that they stacked really neatly. And I was able to bring those in to kind of start building them into a corner of my classroom while I emptied out everything else. Now, here is the part that can get a little tricky. And I say this looking around, noticing that I have an entire classroom of stuff just hanging out in my basement with me right now, which is try to have a plan of where this stuff is going to go. I am about 7 months out as of time of recording this from when I moved out of my classroom, and I have still not figured out what I'm trying to do to organize all the stuff that was in my classroom that's now in my home. If you're going into, from one classroom to the next, that could be easier because you're bringing it right, you're not even bringing it home, but there's a high likelihood that you're going to be bringing it home at least for a little bit before you move into another space. So just be aware of that. Be aware that it's going to be a lot of stuff, and it's probably going to make it a little harder for you to find anything. So if there's anything that you think you'll need before you move into your new space, make sure you put those in very specific areas or label them accordingly so that you can find them. Now, other than the logistics of just like packing stuff up, let's talk a little bit about communicating with your outgoing school and then potentially an inbound school. So first of all, you want to make sure that you're following all the rules, right? If you have to be out by a certain day and have your keys turned in, you need to make sure that you are. So work with your administration, say, hey, like, when do I need to turn in my keys? When do I have to be out? How's that going? How's that going to work? And if you're going into new school, double check and be like, hey, are they waxing the floors? Like, when do you think I'll be able, when am I able to get my key? When am I going to be able to move in? Because every district, every school is different. And sometimes even if for whatever reason, like, you're not allowed to move into your classroom until this date, if you're a new teacher and you talk to your admin and be like, hey, any chance we could get in here a little earlier just to like drop stuff off at least, you might be able to get a little bit of flexibility in that way. Here comes the fun part, which is when you have a new classroom, you have a new space. And there will be times where you are going to kind of throw away your old organizational system out. But I think it's also good for us to keep within what we already know, at least until we get started. For instance, in my classroom, like I said, I had all of those things that were underneath my window. If I don't have a window in a new classroom, obviously I'm not going to put them under window, but I want to keep them all those things close to each other so that at least if I'm like, oh, hey, I think I have this in my old classroom, it would have been here. At least you have an idea of where to look. Well, in this classroom, hey, I moved them over into this cabinet, right? So at least we're able to start kind of give yourself a map that you can follow to find these things so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel or accidentally buy things you already have or just can't find anything that you have and you're like, did I lose it in the move? Where is it? So just kind of make it you're a little bit simpler on yourself. This last part, honestly, like I'm kind of struggling recording it a little bit, which is prepare yourself emotionally to leave that room. Whether or not it was your perfect job or you enjoyed every moment of it, that was that was your space for a long time. Even if it was just a year, like that's a long time. When I left my classroom, I I don't know, there's a lot of memories in there. The deer jumping through the window and jumping out another window. I can't even make it up. Rural school problems, right? Teaching during COVID, when the air condition went out, we're all hot, and or it just, think about those times, take a moment and kind of process that, because I think it's important for us to, even if we're leaving on not so great terms, which is not my case, just to be clear. But even if we're leaving on terms that aren't necessarily our decision or what we would have done if we were in charge, I think that it's important for us to kind of just be aware that this is an emotionally charged thing. Moving sucks. And even if you're just moving down the hallway, right? Like that, it's a stressful process. And especially if you're leaving that school, or leaving or retiring or something like that, there's going to be a lot of emotions that are charged in this whole experience of moving out. And I think it's important for us to give ourselves some time to be aware of that. And I'll be honest. Like I said, I've been out of the classroom for about 7 months at the point where I'm recording this, and it's been a great experience, and I don't regret it in the slightest. But just thinking about that room and the emotions that were going through my mind when I locked the door for the last time, they're still a little heavy, because I loved what I got to do, and I loved the space that I got to do it in, and with the kids that I got to do it with. And I think that's something that, give yourself a moment, process that, and be thankful for it. So whether you're moving this year or you're just listening just in case, I hope that you have gained some insight to help you make this a little bit more of a process that doesn't have to be as chaotic as possible. Like, I know it's going to be chaos, but like, see if we can make it a little bit more organized. I hope that we've been able to get some tips to make it a little bit easier, at least. So if you haven't left us a review on iTunes or YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're joining us from, it would mean the world to us if you were to leave us a 5-star review. Let us know what types of episodes you're looking for, what types of topics you want us to revisit, because now we have hundreds of episodes in the archive that we can go back and kind of touch on again. But it also helps us get in front of new teachers just like you when we leave a review. So we really appreciate that. With that being said, thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode of That Music Podcast. And in case nobody has told you lately, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of the students that you teach.